ready for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I want to drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow.
And I find it kind of funny, find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I ever had. I find it hard to tell you, find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very bad, bad world. Bad world. Children waiting for the day they...
Oh, I have a question. My best friend's nickname is Cunty.
I'm sorry, her name is?
Cunty. And I was hoping I could call her Cunty while I'm here.
Okay, that one's easy. No, you cannot.
Because, you know, I want to have Cunty come visit me for lunch, and if I can't call Cunty Cunty, then it's like, I'm not going to want to have Cunty over at all, which I feel like kind of violates my rights
Yeah, it does not.
as a woman.
Okay, I'm going to have to get back to you on that
Her
one.
best friend's nickname is Cunty.
Let's
Okay.
maybe get back to the kitchen so we can...
Okay. All
All right. No more Cunty.
Terrific. That's really good.
Cunty's done.
Great. But you said it again, but maybe that's the last time.
Cunty's done. I'm going to call you OJ, though.
Yeah,
For
that's
good.
fine.
That's for good.
Yeah, because in my head I changed the meaning from other Jared to original Jared, so now it's a compliment.
And so your strategy today when you're looking at product distribution has to be, what is my really decisive edge? What is the hack that I know that other people don't know? I'm a huge believer in references. I only meet with someone when they come to me through a reference. So one of the things, by the way, is after this I have to run off because I have a meeting that I need to get to. If you want to actually get time and attention with you, find a reference. It's not a pitch to using LinkedIn. It's a question of, this is how you sort out time. You can find like Sam knows me. A reference to me is, in fact, the way that I do this. And so, for example, when I met with the Airbnb guys, part of the reason why I could interrupt them 2 minutes into their pitch and say, I'm going to make you an offer to invest. I want to hear the rest of the pitch because I think what you're doing here is magical and awesome, was because I'd already had references on them. Like, that was only 2 minutes, not even 30 minutes, because I already knew about them before coming in. And by the way, by and large, that's some version of that is true of most of the great investors. It's that network that's really key. And so the confidence was, that world, I still have confidence, believe that it should exist. And no one is getting closer to it than we. It's taking us maybe longer than I'd hoped to get there, but that's okay. Like, for example, one of the tests that I frequently use in an interaction is I push on the idea some. And what I'm looking for is both flexibility and persistence. I'm looking for, no, I have conviction in what I'm thinking and I'm arguing it, but I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm adapting to the concerns and whatnot of how you think about that. Sometimes you'll find someone who says, look, I've learned to mimic that behavior. So I've learned to say, for example, I've learned to look like I'm reasoning with you and I look like I'm thinking about the challenge you bring up, but actually, in fact, I'm ignoring you. Right? And ignoring me, that might be fine. Right? Ignoring the world in general is usually a disaster. Founders is, do you have a diversity of the necessary strengths across the whole range of strengths that would be useful? Frequently, you need one technical founder who is going to be dedicated to the business side, fundraising, these sorts of things. That's kind of classically skill set when you think about the two. And usually, it's kind of some composition across them. And that's kind of like what you think of as founders one when you're thinking about a founding team. The next level deep, for example, one of the things that people will classically tell you is, like, for example, don't invest in a husband-wife team. And actually, that adds a little extra freight to it and everything else because, you know, there's personal dynamics also upset what's going on. I actually think that what you're looking for is, do they collaborate well? Do they help each other get to truth? Right? So, for example, I am most heartened when I'm talking to a team that when they're reasoning to each other. They're not like, oh, we're just all singing from the same thing. It's like, oh, but did you think about this? Or what about this as a challenge? Like, you're navigating the field of battle, which has a bunch of risks. Like, for example, one of the things that was pretty common in PayPal is Max, who invented the fraud systems and everything else, would frequently come into Peter's office, Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, and say, look, here are some things that are going to kill us, and let me focus you on them, right? So it's not like we're all just kind of saying, oh yes, we're all singing our kumbayas, but we are adjusting to what is truth and what's the problem that we need to solve, what's the problem in the short term, what's the problem in the long term, and how are we tackling it? And that composition within a team, that collective problem solving, that collective learning is the kind of thing that actually usually makes great teams. Speed to market, speed to learning is really key. In hardware, if you screw it up, you're dead, right? So accuracy really matters, right? If you build and ship the wrong thing, you're hosed. So part of the beginning of this is, it's not actually in fact that it's one person is good at everything. Navigating a set of things that look like paradoxes, sometimes being heavy on one, sometimes heavy on the other, and having the right judgment at the moment in terms of what you're doing. And that's what tends to be more universal, is balance. And I actually think founders have no balance. Like, one of the funniest conversations I ever had was with a governor of Colorado who was like, we're going to attract really great entrepreneurs here because we have this balanced lifestyle. Literally, if I ever hear a founder talking about, oh, this is how I have a balanced life and so forth, they're not committed to winning, right? And so the only really great founders are, like, I am going to literally pour everything into doing this. Now, it only may be for a couple years. I may do this for a while, then go do all things. But while I'm doing this, I am unbalanced at this thing. It's not to say you don't take breaks, not to say that you don't, go on dates or whatever else. But you're super focused on this because it's really hard and there's lots of ways to die. And that's the reason why the jumping off the cliff metaphor is one of the ones that I classically use. That most people don't think is a market, but you have a reason to believe it, is actually sometimes frequently a good bet. However, it can sometimes completely flame out. And one of the things you're doing when you're testing your investment thesis is, what would lead me to think whether or not there's a market there or not? Because at the beginning, there are no markets. And so it is, of course, conceptually possible to create markets. People think that there's a new need for this sort of thing. On the other hand, the problem is how do you get fast adoption if people don't even know that they want it as a category? Right? So they say, well, but people, if they just realize, like a classic entrepreneurial misfire, if people just once it exists, they'll realize that they really love it and they'll line up in droves for it. Well, there's a few entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs, one of them, who can do that. Most of the time, it doesn't work out that way. And so you have to say, in your investment thesis, why is it that you think, when you're thinking about a market that isn't already existing, that you know that other people don't know on the contrarian basis that leads you to think that market should exist? Is how do you know that you trust someone well enough to be a co-founder? I think that the only way to do this is when you get down to the people that you're thinking you may hire as a CEO, you spend 20 plus hours with them, right? Where you go into as much depth in the conversation about anything you think is a possible difference of opinion, belief, work style. So you've identified it so that it's not that you have a contract. It's not like, oh, we're signing a contract and this is how we do it. But we've established the conversation. We've gone to all the parameters. We've had a conversation about what we might agree with or disagree with. One of the things that I frequently think is worth covering is almost like kind of the divorce. Like, why would we want a divorce? Like, what would lead me to say this isn't working, right? And to cover that up front as part of it. Because then, at that point, when you get into the field of battle, which is hugely stressful, you go through these valley shadows moment, you've at least got the basis of, we already conversed about a wide variety of things. We've set up essentially some expectations about what, how we might be playing together. And if it begins to vary off that, it's relatively easy to bring it up in a way that you're problem solving. And that's the kind of thing that I think you should be fairly confident that you have that level of trust. For me, frequently, it's to have a set of robust conversations such that it's like if something comes up later, it's like, well, we talked about this in version, and we can bring that up. So, thank you.
Feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Wanna feel the way that every child should sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me. Hello, teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I ever had. Find it hard to tell you, find it hard to change. When people run in circles, it's a very, very